Okay, I wanted to quickly go back over how to find area and perimeter of the basic shapes that are on your formula sheet. Okay, so just really fast, just as a reference for those of you who maybe missed class or something like that, I'm going to just go through them all here, okay? So here's a circle, all right? On your formula sheet, it says that we find the area of this A equals pi r squared. It also gives you C equals pi times diameter, and C equals 2 times pi times r. Okay, so let's kind of unpack what all these things are. So the area is the space inside, right? Here's my space inside my circle. Okay, and what I need in order to find the area is the radius. Okay, so a lot of times we're given the diameter. So let me put a diameter on here really fast. Here's a diameter. Okay, and a diameter is a line that goes through the center of your circle. Okay, and a radius is going to be half of your diameter. Okay, so R and blue is your diameter. Okay, so your radius is 1/2 of your diameter. Okay, so if you're given that the diameter is 8, d equals 8, your radius is half of that, so your radius is 4. Okay, so let's find the area of the inside of our circle here. Okay, so pi times 4 squared. Okay, the squared is only applying to that radius there. It's not applying to the pi as well. So we have pi times 4 squared. Okay, so pi times 4 times 4. Now 4 squared means 4 times 4, not 2 times 4. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, we want 4 times 4. That's good, 4 times 4. Okay, so if we do pi times 4 times 4, that's going to come out to pi times 16, which equals 50.24. Another important thing to remember is that pi equals 3.14 for our purposes. Now that's rounded. Pi is an irrational number, but 3.14 rounded is fine. Okay? Now the circumference is going to be the distance around the outside of the circle. Okay? It's like the perimeter of the circle. Alright, so if you ever have a figure and you need the perimeter of the figure and it has part of a circle, you're looking for part of that circumference. Okay? So if you're given the diameter, you simply say C equals pi times 8, which would come out to be 25.12, okay? And if you're given the radius, which in this case would be 4, you would just do 2 times pi times 4, which will also give you 25.12. So there's your circle. Now, let's say we only want half of the circle. Okay, still has a radius of 4, right? If this finds the whole circle, and I only want a semicircle, I want half of the circle, the area of half the circle, area of half, then I just need to take my area of the whole circle, area of whole. In order to get 2, I just divide it by 2. In order to get 2, I would just divide by 2, so 50.24 was my area of my circle. So in order to get half of that, I would divide it by 2, and it gives me 25.12, okay? Now if I wanted just a quarter of the circle, so this red region shaded in right there, that's 1/4 of a circle, okay? That's 1 part out of 4. So to get this red section, so let me draw it. So in order to get the red section, that's 1 out of 4 pieces. So I just think, how many pieces of the circle do I want? Well, I only want 1 out of 4 possible pieces, so I need to divide my circle into 4. Okay, so that would be the area of the whole over 4. Okay, so 50.24 over 4. Alright, and that gives me 12.56. Alright, so now let's say that we want the perimeter of this semicircle, okay? So I drew a semicircle here. Alright, here's my semicircle. right? And I highlighted what would be the perimeter of a semicircle. Okay, and there's two parts to this semicircle. Okay, one is highlighted in yellow here, and that is the round part of the semicircle. Okay, so that's the round part. Okay, and the round part is, if we were to, draw this in like I did, the round part is half of the circumference of the whole circle. So it's 1/2 of the circumference of the whole circle. Okay? So then say that we just have this semicircle sitting here. Well, it's the whole outside that makes the semicircle, okay? So that's why we also have the green part in here, which is just, if we look closely, it's just the diameter, okay? So this is the diameter, okay? And so the yellow plus the green means the round plus the diameter, okay? And so that would be 1/2 of the circumference plus the diameter, okay? So if this is still a radius of 4, okay, then that would mean that the round part would be 1/2 of 2 times pi times 4, right? Because that's 2 pi r equals the circumference, all right? And then the diameter plus the diameter would be 2 times 4, so that's 8. Okay? But that's just if the semicircle is sitting alone. Now let's say we put this semicircle on top of a square or something like that, right? Now we don't need to think about this diameter because it's not on the outside anymore. It's on the inside. We don't care about it when it's on the inside because it's not part of the perimeter, right? I'll highlight the perimeter of this thing here. The perimeter of this is right here. Okay? So we don't care about that diameter anymore. Alright? So make sure you're paying attention to what it's asking for. Okay? So the next one that's kind of tricky is the triangles, right? Because with triangles, we need the height. And the height is not always one of the sides, okay? So triangles, alright, we need the height. And the thing to remember about the height is that it's always at a 90-degree angle with the base. Okay? So, here's my triangle. I'm going to draw different types of triangles, okay? So here's one. Alright, here's another one. Alright, so I have 3 different types of triangles here. Okay? In this one, so let's say I'm just going to label all the sides here. I'll say this is 3, 3, and 7. And that's not really a triangle, but whatever. 3, 3, and 7. So the side length here's 3, okay? So I want to find area and perimeter of each of these. And let's do 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so 3, 4, and 5. So here's my 90-degree angle, all right? That means that this here is my base, and this here is my height, okay? So if area, from the formula sheet, says 1/2 times base times height, okay? So that means 1/2 times the base, which is 4, times the height, which is 3. So that's 1/2 times 12, so that equals 6, okay? Now if we wanted the perimeter, we just need to add up all the sides, okay? So the sides in this case would be 5 plus 4 plus 3. 5 plus 4 plus 3. So that gives me 5 plus 7, which gives me 12. Okay? Now in this one, let's say it's labeled 5, 5, and 8. Okay? Or 5, 5, and we'll say this is 6 down here. Alright, so 5, 5, and 6. Perimeter of this one, we have all 3 sides, right? Here's side 1, here's side 2, here's side 3. So for perimeter, it's just 5 plus 5 plus 6. But for area, we need 1/2 base times height. Now none of these, this and this, are not at a 90-degree angle with the base. So what we need to do is we need to draw it in, okay? And usually it'll be given to you. All right, let me erase that. Okay? Usually it'll be given to you. So let's draw it in. Alright, so there's a dotted line to show the height. Okay? Now the height in this case, I happen to know is 4. Okay? So now, instead of saying I'm going to do 1/2 of 6 times 5, I have to do 1/2 of my base, right? So this is at a 90-degree angle now, so this is my base. And now 4 is my height, okay? 5 and 5 are just sides. They're just sides, okay? They don't matter really, except for the perimeter. Okay, so 1/2 times the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 4, equals 1/2 times 24 equals 12. Okay? The last one here, I'm going to have to extend my base, okay? None of these are at 90-degree angles. This one's obtuse, this is acute, and this is acute, okay? There. So I know I don't have my height here. So let's say that this is a 12. Let's say this is 11, and we'll say this one is 10, okay? The height here has to be at a 90-degree angle with my base, and that's why I drew these extra dotted lines here, because it's not going to be inside the triangle. I can't draw a 90-degree angle to one of the vertices anywhere in here. It won't work. So I have to draw it here. Now I have a 90-degree angle. So this here, in red outside, is my height, okay? So let's say this height here is actually just 5, okay? Alright, now my base, this is the 90-degree angle, so my base is 10, and my height is 5, okay? So base, height, alright? So my area equals 1/2 times base times height equals 1/2 times 10 times 5 equals 1/2 times 50 equals 25. And now my perimeter, now this is key, I'm going to circle the things we need for the perimeter. The perimeter we need to add the sides, so we need to add the sides and not the height. The height is not a side in this case. The only time it's a side is in this one over here. Okay, so our sides are 11, 12, and 10. So the perimeter is going to be 11 plus 12 plus 10. So that's going to give me 33 for my perimeter. Okay? So that's triangles. Squares are pretty simple. Okay? If you know one side of a square, you know all the sides, right? So if I know that's 2, I also know this, this, and this are 2. The area is length times width, or which is equal to 2 times 2, okay, which equals 4. And on your formula sheet, it also says A equals side squared. So that means if you're only given 2, and you know it's a square, then you know that the side, all you have to do is plug 2 in. So area equals 2 squared, which also gives you 4. So either way you want to do it will work. Rectangles are also pretty simple, right? If we know we know one side, we know only the opposite side. Okay, so if we know one side is 10, we know the opposite side is 10. If we know one side is 5, we know the opposite side is 5. So area for a rectangle equals length times width. So that's 10. We just pick one of these to use, okay? So one of these is the length, one of these is the width. It doesn't matter which one you choose as long as you only use one, okay? So 10 times 5, so our area equals 50. Okay? Now let's try another shape. I'll draw one. Okay. So this shape is called a parallelogram. And parallelograms are nice because just like with our rectangles, if we know one side, we can know the other side. So if this is 5, we know the other side is 5. And if this is 10, we know the other side is 10. Okay? But parallelograms are tricky because we also need a height on them. Okay? So you drop the height from the vertex to the base at a 90-degree angle. Okay? So let's say this height is 4. Okay? The area is simply base times height, but you got to know which one is the base and which one is the height. So here's our 90-degree angle. This means this is our height and this is our base. Okay? So area in this case would be 4 times 10 So area equals 40. And perimeter, we only want the sides, okay? So here are my sides. I don't want the height. It's not one of my sides, okay? So the perimeter equals 5 plus 5 plus 10 plus 10 equals 30. Now something tricky you might see is they might write the height like this. Okay? Outside of the parallelogram. And it's okay to do this, right? As long as you know that it's the height. It is not one of the sides. It's a dotted line. It's not really part of the thing. It's just the height, okay? So in that case, you would still use it, still be 4, but they could draw it in either one of those two places, so you got to be careful, okay? Another tricky one is a trapezoid, okay? The area for a trapezoid is 1/2 times the height times base 1, so b sub 1. This doesn't mean b to the first power, it means b sub 1. It's a label. Plus b sub 2, which doesn't mean b squared. It means b sub 2. It's a label, okay? So b1, b2, okay? You got to make sure you remember your order of operations, remember your parentheses. Okay, so the height in this case is where you would expect it at a 90-degree angle, okay? Height's always at a 90-degree angle. And let's say the height in this case is 5. We'll say base 2 is 10, base 1 is 14. Okay, and the two sides we'll say are equal in this particular case, and they're both 6. Okay, so the area would be 1/2 times the height, which is 5. Okay, not 6, it's 5, times base 1, so 14, plus base 2, which is 10, which gives us 1/2 times 5 times 14 plus 10 is 24. Okay, so that's 1/2 times 120, which equals 60. Okay, so there's our area. All right, now perimeter, I need to add up the sides. So here are the sides. Side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4. The height is not a side. So the perimeter is 10 plus 6 plus 14 plus 6. So that's going to be 36. Okay, so there's your trapezoid. I think we're almost through all the shapes. Yeah, that's all the shapes that are on your formula sheet. So now we should have no problems figuring out our composite figures. Then from there, all we need to do is figure out what are my missing sides and what shapes do I need to find the area and perimeter of, okay? So that's all, folks.